What this bill will do, 7581 Substitute A accelerates the DMV surcharges, provides for all registration and license fees to be transferred for highway and transit on a phased-in basis, and allocates 65% of the transferred funds to DOT and 35% to RIPTA. In addition to Representative O'Grady, I'd like to ask Mr. Jerry Elmer and Mr. O'Demway from RIPTA to come forward. Good afternoon, Representative. Welcome. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Appreciate the opportunity to speak on this bill today. As you all recall, last year, this committee endorsed or heard a bill that we referred to as the Transportation Investment and Debt Reduction Act of 2011. And a version of that bill made it into last year's budget and was adopted. And I think we can take some satisfaction, perhaps some pride in the fact that what that bill did was move the state away from its unsustainable reliance on bonding to provide a match for the federal transportation dollars that come into the state to support the activities of DOT. We saw over the last several years sort of a series of slides presented by DOT in presentations to this committee and others that showed this tremendous reliance on debt service as part of their budget and an increasing use of our gas tax yield to pay down debt service. The budget article that came out of this committee and was passed on the floor last year raised automobile registration fees in addition to licensing fees, dedicated those funds into a transportation trust fund, which was then dedicated to move the state steadily away from its reliance on long-term borrowing, long-term debt obligations to match our federal dollars. But there was an important element of that bill as proposed to this committee that was left out of the budget article, and it was the element that recognized that our transportation system is more than roads. It is, in fact, a system that includes buses, includes perhaps commuter rail, and includes other modes of transportation besides simply the roads that we drive on. So the bill that I'm submitting this year takes a look at that issue again. And as the chairman pointed out, what it would do is three things. First of all, it would keep, and I want to be clear about this, it keeps the obligation in place for any new monies raised to first go towards moving us away from our reliance on bonding to provide the match for the federal monies. So that is unchanged. But what is changed is it brings RIPTA back into the picture. And so for the Transportation Trust Fund that's been set up, it establishes a 65%, 35% split so that DOT continues to receive 65% of all monies that go into the Transportation Trust Fund. However, RIPTA is cut in again at a 35% level. As the chairman mentioned, it transfers from the general fund the vehicle registration fees and the licensing fees over to this Transportation Trust Fund, not just the increment as a result of last year's increases, but the entire amounts. And it does so in 20% increments over a 5-year period, which results in a net increase to both DOT and certainly to RIPTA. One of the accomplishments of last year's bill is that it again moved us away from this reliance on long-term borrowing. But what it did not do is it did not address what was presented to us as a $2.8 billion unfunded transportation liability. In other words, there is a $280 million a year shortfall in the monies that DOT receives for maintenance of our roads and bridges a year, $280 million a year over the next 10 years. That would be required simply to bring our roads and bridges up to a safe and passable level. I think that we can all agree that this state can ill afford to see a repeat of what we saw in Pawtucket over the last 10 years, where a major bridge on Route 95 is suddenly weight restricted causing net hundreds of miles of detours to all the truck and transit traffic that goes through this state on the New York to Boston corridor. We don't want to see that again. And so the extra money that goes into the Transportation Trust Fund and distributed again to DOT in addition to RIPTA would really help us avert another Pawtucket Bridge situation, whether it be at the viaduct in Providence or whether it be elsewhere in this state. I think a previous speaker mentioned that we really need to focus on keeping RIPTA afloat. Last summer, we all, or many of us anyways, went around the state and participated in the service cut hearings that RIPTA held. And one thing that became very clear to me is that RIPTA is a key component to the mobility of our disabled community. And the RIDE program is established as an offshoot of the RIPTA service routes. And so if you are living within close proximity to a RIPTA bus route, you are able to take advantage of the RIDE program as a result of that proximity. If bus routes are eliminated, you no longer have, and the route that you live in proximity to is eliminated, then you no longer have the opportunity to tap into the RIDE program. And that would severely limit the mobility of some of our most disadvantaged residents, from a transportation perspective. So there are others here that can certainly speak to the details of this bill, but I think that what this does is it complements and completes the efforts that we took last year, the steps that we took last year. Again, the bill's title last year was the Transportation Investment and Deficit and Debt Reduction Act of 2011. I would argue that that bill was strong on the debt reduction aspect, but not quite strong enough on the transportation investment aspect. And this bill seeks to address that shortfall, that shortcoming. And again, there are others here that can speak to its effects.
Thank you, Representative.
Thank
Any
you.
questions for Representative Grady? Thank you. Mr. Elmer, good afternoon and welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. My name is Jerry Elmer. I'm a staff attorney at Conservation Law Foundation, and I serve as the co-chair of the Coalition for Transportation Choices that strongly supports this bill. I'm going to limit my testimony to only two specific points. One is why this bill is such good public policy, and the second is the unusually, perhaps astonishingly broad range of support that the bill has. First, about public policy. Rhode Island needs public transportation. RIPTA is by statute Rhode Island's mobility manager, and by statute, RIPTA is Rhode Island's only mobility manager. RIPTA runs 56 fixed routes, takes 62,000 passengers every weekday. RIPTA is how Rhode Island workers get to their jobs, how Rhode Island students get to school, how people get to medical appointments, how people get to recreation. We know that the problems, the perennial funding problems at RIPTA are not, and I don't work for RIPTA, I can say this, not a result of mismanagement, not a result of malfeasance. You've heard year after year the causes of RIPTA's funding shortfalls, things like the declining year-over-year yield from the gasoline tax. The gasoline tax is the largest single source of funding for RIPTA. It declined recently 12.9% over just 4 years. The increase in diesel fuel cost, 100% increase in diesel fuel cost between 2005 and today. Nobody would suggest or even hint that this is RIPTA's fault. The problem is a systemic, built-in one of the sources of money that are inadequate for RIPTA. This is a bill that addresses that. This General Assembly 4 years ago challenged RIPTA to develop a vision for improvement and expansion of service. To RIPTA's credit, they did develop a 5-year strategic plan, additional buses on the busiest routes, bus rapid transit, increase the capacity of our park and rides, establish new hubs in and around Providence, improve shelters. These are things that RIPTA can only do if RIPTA is adequately funded. The second thing I want to talk about is the support for this bill. And I will finish up quickly, Mr. Chairman. You all have in front of you a packet of letters and resolutions from city councils. The city councils of Providence, Pawtucket, Cranston, Warwick, North Providence, Bristol, Burrillville have all supported this bill. Providence said, and I quote, "Tens of thousands of Providence residents rely on RIPTA bus service. We respectfully request the General Assembly provide adequate funding for a sustainable RIPTA." This bill does that. This bill has been endorsed by the Chamber of Commerce and by the AFL-CIO. How many bills have ever come before this committee with strong support from the Chamber of Commerce and the unions? You saw in the newspaper recently the Transit Workers Union was picketing at RIPTA headquarters. This is a bill that has support of RIPTA management and RIPTA's union. It was endorsed unanimously by RIPTA's board of directors. It's been strongly supported by the Environment Council of Rhode Island because of the connection between transportation and carbon emissions. It's been supported by the Coalition for Transportation Choices, a coalition of 49 Rhode Island organizations ranging from AARP, GrowSmart, health groups like the Lung Association, business organizations.
Selma, we read all of that testimony. We've gotten the email, so we appreciate it.
And yes, we did send that to you previously in an email. It's a bill with strong support, and we commend it to your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Mr. O'Demway. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just here in my capacity as the Chief Executive Officer of RIPTA to talk about, to ask you to please support this agreed bill. And just want to commend Rev. Valencia for also co-sponsoring this bill. From my perspective, the last gentleman just spoke about waste at RIPTA. I'm here to tell you again, in my capacity as the Chief Executive Officer, that is not true. Our challenge is because of the structural deficiencies that existed in the way we are funded. Having said that, we still took on the challenge of trying to fix what people perceive to be a problem within the organization. And let me just highlight some of the stuff that we've done internally, and these were very painful, and I repeat, very painful process, because we had to make those tough choices that created so much conflict within the organization and dropped morale. We've reduced our staff overall by about 3%. On the administrative staff, is close to 10%. And this is as we speak, and that process is ongoing. We've worked diligently with staff to look at every aspect of what we do, from how many vehicles we have on board, how many copiers we have in the office. We've taken a look at all of those things and have worked to reduce them just in an effort to save, to reduce our costs. What has that done for RIPTA? That's the reason why RIPTA was able, for the last fiscal year, to close our deficit gap. We did close it on our own without help from anybody. For this particular fiscal year, we took a $4.6 million deficit and we dropped it to $1.9 million. And I do believe that my staff needs to be commended for embracing this particular project despite all of the conflict and acrimony that it created. From a capacity perspective, we talk about DOT and we talk about RIPTA. RIPTA actually helps DOT in terms of capacity on the streets. As we speak, ridership is about 11%, it's gone up about 11%, which means by the end of this fiscal year, you're looking at 20 million rides. Just imagine for 1 second what the streets would look like if we infused 20 million rides back on your roadway. That's what needs to be funded. What needs to be funded is that capacity that we offer to DOT and the local roadways by taking some of those rides away from DOT. Also, Of all of these, our current 18 million rides from the last fiscal year, 12 million rides are for trips to work and back. These individuals are related to each and every one of you. What will happen to these individuals if all of a sudden 12 million individuals have nowhere to get to work? So I'm here to ask you, from a rider perspective, from a roadway capacity perspective, because you guys are all aware of the state of our roadways, this bill needs your support. This bill needs your support. The structural issues that RIPTA has been dealing with needs to be corrected. And also, my board chair, who's the Mayor Avedian of Warwick, did send a letter. He was supposed to be here, but due to an emergency, he couldn't be here today. He sends his regrets and then had a letter for the board, so for the committee. So I truly, truly ask this committee to please support the O'Grady bill, because RIPTA at this point does need the help to continue to be one of the economic catalysts for the state of Rhode Island.
Thank you, Mr. Denwood. Representative O'Grady, thank you for putting this bill in. As you know, this committee has heard, not only have we heard the RIPTA's budget before this committee, but also some budget articles concerning RIPTA, and we thank Mr. Demway for the work that he's done and all of your RIPTA employees to try to close that deficit. And Representative, you've identified some sources of funding, and we appreciate your work on this also. Just say that because I want everybody to understand, in the audience, that we understand what the problems are. This committee has heard testimony not only this year, but last year on the problems that RIPTA has. We appreciate what RIPTA does, the impact and the importance that RIPTA has in the community. So I know people are kind of come to testify to tell us that. We get it. We know that. It's just that at this point in time, we need to identify sources of funding, and Representative Grady has provided some sources of funding, and we appreciate that. So thank you very much. Any other questions of the panel? Thank you. We appreciate your testimony. I'd like to call George Nee, Dan Bowden, and Deanna Casey. It doesn't matter which order you go in if you just want to. Certainly. Thank you. Good afternoon and welcome.
Thank you, Chairman, and members of the committee for hearing me. I'll be very brief, as you've requested. Excuse me. My name is Deanna Casey. I'm the Advocacy Director of AARP Rhode Island. AARP is a strong advocate of public transportation for many reasons, but primarily because it facilitates mobility for our older Rhode Islanders. AARP, with over 130,000 members in Rhode Island, promotes aging in place, the fulfillment of most people's natural desire to stay in their homes comfortably and safely, and that both parts of that is good roads and good public transportation. So we need to invest, as you know, in both our roads and transportation system. So AARP Rhode Island strongly supports this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, sir. Welcome.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Dan Bodwin, members of the committee. I'm the Executive Director of the Providence Foundation. We're a business-supported, not-for-profit group that's worked very hard to redevelop Providence, particularly downtown Providence. I just want you to know that we appreciate your attention to this matter, and we really appreciate the fact that you know there are problems and you know that there are some challenges with not only RIPTA, but with RIDOT. We support this bill. We think it can bring some sustainability to transportation funding that's needed, and we certainly need to be able to move our people around this state using a variety of different modes. My second hat that I bring today is I'm a member of the Transportation Advisory Committee for the state. We recommend how to spend federal dollars to the State Planning Council, and every year we struggle with the amount of dollars that are available. There are good projects, there are necessary projects that have to be postponed, and I think this bill will start to address that backlog. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. Good afternoon, George. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is George Nee. I'm the president of the Rhode Island AFL-CIO, and I'm here to strongly support this legislation. I believe this gives us an opportunity to undo some of the mistakes in the past in our funding formulas and criteria for both DOT and for RIPTA. This is a jobs bill. This is an economic development bill. RIPTA, in particular, is critical to providing the opportunities for people to work. Many employers are dependent on public transportation for the employees to get there, as are many employees dependent on a good public transportation system in order to get to work. If we accelerate the funding as proposed in this bill with an unemployment rate of 11%, in the building trades, close to 40% in some of the trades, we can put people back to work right away, which will enhance our economy, make your life a lot easier with more revenue coming in. And for all of these reasons, we fully support this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions of the panel? Thank you. We appreciate your testimony.
Thank you.
Paul Harrington from the Transit Union, Abel Collins from RIPTA Riders, and Rudy Cheeks. If you want to come forward, please. Good afternoon, Mr. Harrington, and welcome.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I thank you for giving me the opportunity. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I thank you for the opportunity to speak on mass transit today. My name is Paul Harrington. I'm the president business agent of the Amalgamated Transit Union, Local 618. I'm here to ask for your support for this bill. Not only as a president business agent, but I was a bus operator for 15 years. And I literally saw the people that took mass transit. I lived it. And it is the economic lifeline to tens of thousands of Rhode Islanders on each and every day that depend on mass transit. It's a lifeline to our senior and disabled through the fixed route and the ride program that's attached to the HIP. It's a lifeline to the young kids that are here to support this bill today so they can attend our universities of higher education. It is an economic recovery for the state of Rhode Island, and I say it's essential that we find a formula to fund mass transit properly, and I ask for your support for this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, welcome.
My name is Lance Robbins. I'm the principal of Urban Smart Growth. We are the historic redevelopment developer who did Hope Artiste Village and Greystone Lofts in North Providence. We are in the early stages of finally being able to complete 135 apartments at Hope Artiste Village, a very transit and energy efficient project. The continued viability of RIPTA, the ability to be able to offer an alternative to car transportation for our tenants throughout the state is a critical part of what Urban Smart Growth is all about and a critical part to this project. Therefore, we continue to support the funding alternatives from an economic development as well as a energy conservation point of view. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Abel, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, members of the committee. I've provided a few things for your consideration today. One is, and by the way, I work for the Sierra Club's Rhode Island chapter. We represent over 2,000 members in Rhode Island fighting for environmental justice. I'm also a member of RIPTA Riders, as you said. And one of the things we've been doing over the past year since the service cut hearings in the summer is getting signatures on the Save RIPTA petition. I've submitted the ones that we've collected to date. That's 5,533 names on this petition. And also a separate document with 37 names of members of the House of Representatives who have also signed that petition. And I think that documents well the public support, of course, that transit service has in Rhode Island. I would like to harken back briefly to the service cut hearings of last year. Huge turnout. Obviously, you're seeing the same thing here. Again, documenting that this is a critical service to the public. What we saw last summer will just be a shadow of what we see in the coming summer if nothing is done for RIPTA by the General Assembly this year. The deficit we were facing last year was $4.6 million. Going into next year, it's going to be above $8 million, and we'll see where that goes depending on the price of diesel fuel. Comparing those numbers, we're probably looking at something around 20%, 25% service cuts. And that's something that the people of Rhode Island cannot afford and the economy of Rhode Island cannot afford. So I urge you to support Representative O'Grady's bill. It's a great bill, H7581. I will also ask members of the public who are watching today to find the petition online, put your name on it, and make sure your voices are heard. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Herein, thank you for your testimony. Michael Rolls, Don Rhodes, Lauren Carlson. Good afternoon and welcome.
Good afternoon, Rep. Dallison. My name is Michael Rolls. I'm here on behalf of the Environment Council of Rhode Island. We are a coalition of more than 60 of the large and small environmental organizations throughout the state, including Conservation Law Foundation, Sierra Club, Save the Bay. Each year, the Environment Council selects a list of 3 to 6 legislative priorities, and this is towards the top of that list of legislative priorities. It's an imperative of the utmost importance of the Environment Council. So I just want to share this image of the benefits of public transit. We have a crowded street here, 60 people on the road. And then you have 60 people on the bus. I think that's pretty cool. Obviously, one day they all decided to ride the bus. Anyway, I actually rode on the bus to come here, as I do every day, for my meetings, appointments, and work. I am a resident of Warwick, and it's a 40-minute bus ride to come into the city and 40 minutes out. And I used to be able to ride 20 minutes in and 20 minutes out on the 12, but RIPTA had to cut that a few years ago because of the decline in revenue. I have witnessed people needing to wait more than an hour for the bus, and I've also witnessed full buses needing to turn people away who wait at the bus stops, prolonging their day. And I just want to make one more point. My grandmother, a few years ago, she was a dialysis patient, and she had to depend on the RIDE program to get to her dialysis appointments, and it was obviously something that she needed to do to stay alive. But that's why this is was a few reasons why this is important to me as personally, and it's also a big priority once again for the Environment Council. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Good afternoon and welcome.
Good afternoon. My name is Lauren Carson, and I work for Clean Water Action. And Clean Water Action has about 30,000 members in the state of Rhode Island, and we were a founding member of the Coalition for Transportation Choices. And it would be very easy for me to remind us all that as we drive in our cars and we see all the transportation issues that result from that, energy and that affect the environment, largely energy consumption, land consumption, lost farmland, loss of wildlife habitat, not to mention air, water, and noise pollution, which the environmental community is very concerned about. But the environmental community in my organization is also concerned about the fiscal stability of the public transportation system in Rhode Island. And we think it's sound public policy to limit and curtail our reliance on the gas tax to continue to fund RIPTA. And as a result, Clean Water Action is urging you to support this bill and pass it as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Good afternoon, sir. Welcome.
How you doing, folks? Oops. My name is Don Rhodes. I'm a legislative lobbyist for the RIPTA Riders, a 22-year rider on RIPTA every day between 2 and 4 rides a day. And I'm here to one illustration of how much RIPTA is needed. Providence Place Mall, as you know, has many restaurants and shops in it. Its hours are regular retail hours. And if some of the cuts that are mentioned in the proposed cuts for RIPTA, like Sunday holiday cutbacks, nights and weekend cutbacks, those are just 2 examples that would definitely hinder the employment structure in our state, and I don't think we can afford to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions of the panel? Thank you. We appreciate it. Amelia Rose, Jane Austin, and Eugenia Marks. Good afternoon and welcome.
Thank you.
Could you make sure your button's up, okay? Should be.
Press it on. I see. Good afternoon. My name is Amelia Rose. I'm the director of the Environmental Justice League of Rhode Island. And the Environmental Justice League is a community-based organization that works with low-income communities and communities of color around environmental issues that directly impact their lives, their communities' lives. And we feel that public transportation